the race is on to replace Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And what was a three-man campaign has now shrunk to just two after Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming announced that he would not run for the position. In a letter to his colleagues, Barrasso, the third most powerful Republican in the Senate, announced that instead he would run for the number 2 position of whip. The race for the top spot is now between current Minority Whip Senator John Thune of South Dakota and former Whip John Cornyn of Texas. Yes, all the men had the first name John. Those two, Cornyn and Thune, have both formally announced they're running for McConnell's job. The election for the GOP conference chair is also shaping up to be a close fight. Fourth-ranked Senator Joni Ernst, who is considering a run for the position, called out her colleague Senator Tom Cotton yesterday after he announced a bid without giving his party a heads up.
I want to be in whatever role I can help my fellow senators and President Trump best achieve our shared goals for the American people. Some of my colleagues have approached me about the conference chair job, the number 3 position in leadership. I'm focusing on that position right now.
Elections for Senate Republican leadership will be held behind closed doors this November. Joining us now, communications strategist and former aide to House Speakers Ryan and Boehner, Brendan Buck. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. Brendan, good to see you this morning. So let's get just your overview of these Senate leadership races, and what sort of role do you think Donald Trump will play?
Well, I think he could play a really important role. And to that point, I think I would be surprised if it ends up just being John Cornyn and John Thune in this race. It was a bit of a surprise that John Barrasso decided to take a pass on it and run for the number 2 spot. The reminder that the way this works, you only need a simple majority. So if it is just those two, it would be a pretty straightforward election. But there's a pretty significant block of Senate Republicans who are pretty disgruntled. They're the folks who are taking shots at McConnell, and they are much more of the MAGA wing of the party. It would surprise me if they don't recruit someone, if only to serve to block one of those two Johns and at least have a seat at the table in the election behind closed doors. Whether that is someone like Steve Daines, who currently chairs the party committee, there is a group who want to go in a completely different direction than what Mitch McConnell has gone in. And the two Johns that remain are pretty establishment standard Republicans. John Cornyn was in leadership for 10 years. John Thune is currently the number 2. So I imagine we're going to have a little more drama to this race, which is going to last 8 months. As you said, November. That's an extremely long time for a leadership race. Could get very ugly, could get very personal. And I imagine Donald Trump at the end could have a big say. If there's someone he doesn't want to be the Republican leader, I imagine he has the power to make that happen.
Safe bet that it will be ugly and personal. Brendan, I want to go dig a little deeper in some of the developments yesterday in a couple of key battleground states, presidential battleground states. First of all, in Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema says she's not going to run for re-election. So now we have a 2-person Senate race with Kari Lake being the Republican. And then in North Carolina, which is the state that Democrats, the one state on the map that Trump won last time, the Democrats think they can pick up this time around. The Republicans have nominated a man named Mark Robinson for governor. He's a legitimate Holocaust denier and has also said a number of deeply offensive things about several groups. What's your read here as to what those two states, what we saw yesterday, could impact November in those two states?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Obviously, in an election year, the top of the ticket is going to drive most things. And if we're mostly focused on whether Biden or Trump is going to win North Carolina, I don't know that the governor in the race is really going to decide that. But it could imagine on the margins in one of these states, both Arizona and North Carolina, could be razor-thin margins, and everything could sway the outcome. If you have a situation where you are say a Nikki Haley Republican and you are just sort of fed up with the direction of the party and you see that is your governor nominee, you may just be inclined to stay home. And that could be enough to swing the state one way or the other. Obviously, in Arizona, I think Democrats are pleased that they've got a much clearer path and a much clearer situation that they're dealing with. They clearly see Kari Lake as a toxic candidate, and it makes it a much easier dynamic for them to play with. But again, we're talking about razor-thin margins that could decide the president, and so all of these developments are really important in the bigger context.
Yeah, in a race that is expected to be super, super close. So, Brendan, you mentioned Nikki Haley. She did post one win last night and put up reasonably impressive showings in a few other states. But Trump now just about 150 delegates away from clinching the nomination. Haley had said she'd stay in for Super Tuesday. It's now the day after that. What do you anticipate she'll do next?
Well, I guess I'll say I anticipated her to drop out long before now. I think it's been very clear that she wasn't going to win, and she has served as a protest candidate. I still sort of expect that this is winding down, and she knows it. The math is very clear that she's not going to win. The big question is not necessarily whether she drops out or stays in. It's what does she signal to people who voted for her? I don't think that Nikki Haley necessarily commands every one of those people's votes. Those are clearly, I think, anti-Trump votes. But if she tries to signal to those people that it's okay to come back to Donald Trump, it's okay to sort of come back in the fold, we need to unify, do the standard politician thing, that would be interesting. But I'm more interested to see whether she wants to lead the party in a different direction. I don't think that there is a real post-Trump future for her or anybody at any time in the near term. But if she wants to stand on morals and principles and say it's okay not to vote for Donald Trump this time around, I think she could have a significant legacy and impact on the race in November.
And her team very tight-lipped last night as to what she'll do next. We didn't hear from Haley personally, no speech. So we'll see what happens in the days ahead as she weighs her future. Brendan Buck, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And